Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the session on Python for data science. We're super excited to have you back. I hope you've enjoyed your lunch. You've had a nice break. And we'll be resuming again with our Python programming. But as promised, we had one thing remaining from last time, which is the lucky draw contest. And we have 3 Amazon Echo Dots to give, right? And we'll be giving those out now as part of the lucky draw. So I have a small Python program that I've written, and we have a collected list of all individuals who are part of who made a valid post on LinkedIn. So all of those who made a valid post, we have collected their information. We have their information stored in the Python program, and we will now be announcing the lucky draw. Now, if your name comes up in the lucky draw, please identify yourself and the gift is yours. Our team will then reach out to you to have the Echo Dot shipped to you at the moment, right? So perfect, let's get started with it. I'm going to start with sharing my screen. So, okay, here we go. Share screen. Okay. And I hope all of you can see it. So we have this here. We have a small script that we have written, and we're using NumPy and pandas. We don't really need NumPy. It's just a common practice to put NumPy as pandas. I've started with that. We actually have some import statements here in the first cell block. After that, we have the read CSV statement, and I have a CSV file of all the posts. And then we have a row count. This will tell us how many posts that we have that were totally qualified for this. Keep in mind, you had to post on LinkedIn and you had to follow us on LinkedIn, right? And you had to mark at BlobCity within the post. And the cutoff time was 1:30. So if you've done this now or after 1:30 p.m. India time, you're not on the list, right? And then we use a simple random number generator, which generates a random number from 0 to row count. Then we pick up a row at random from the index. So you have the index I value, which is randomly generated from 0 to the row count. We pick up the index, and then we print the name and the post link, and we can actually view the post over here that the person has posted, right? Now, for all those of you who are not able to see the screen clearly, if it's blurry for you, what you need to do is on YouTube, first make sure you are registered from a desktop computer. So if you're viewing it from mobile, it may not be clear because the mobile screen will be too small to accommodate all of these fonts. So first thing is make sure you're watching this from a computer screen. And on the computer screen on YouTube, you will see a quality control. So hit the setting option. And on settings, you will see quality. So you will see something like 240 pixels, 720 pixels. So change the quality to 720p. Okay, so if you change it to 720p, this screen will be crystal clear for all of you. So if you've not done that, please go ahead and change your quality setting to 720p, right? You will be able to do it properly, right? And for any reason, if the voice is not clear, audio is not clear, we recommend using a headphone because sometimes your speakers can echo. They can actually reduce the quality of the voice, etc. It may be a little weak. So if you use headphones, you will get a seamless experience for the class, right? And yeah, so let's get with the lucky draw. So I know all of you are waiting for this. 3 of you are going to win an Amazon Echo Dot right now. So let's get you started with this. So here we go. I'm going to run my first statement, which is just imports. Now I'm going to run my file, which allows me to basically read my CSV file. And I've read the CSV file and I've presented some values, which are head values. So you can see some names of people along with the LinkedIn profiles are listed here, right? And this is just the top 5 rows, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a count, right? So is the file updated, Saukat? Yes, the file is updated. The file has been updated at 1:30 p.m. So we have taken all the posts that came in before 1:30 p.m. So it is updated, right? You don't have to worry. If you followed us on LinkedIn, if you posted on LinkedIn and you marked at BlobCity on LinkedIn, you're sure shot in the file. So let's look at how many posts that legitimately qualified. Okay, so there are 90 posts. There are 90 people who posted, and we have 3 echo dots to give. You have a good chance. You at least have more than 3% chance of winning in the lucky draw, right? With this. So now I'm going to proceed on to the next one. So after I generate the random name, I will open the post. I'm going to wait for a few seconds because I know YouTube has some degree of broadcast delay. I need you to identify yourself if you are present in the session. And if you're not present in the session, if you're not able to identify yourself immediately, then we move on to the next person on the list. So you miss your echo dot and we will move on to the next person, right? So please keep that in mind that you need to successfully identify yourself on the YouTube chat or the Zoom chat. Either of the chat windows is fine. You need to successfully identify yourself. And our team, the BlobCity team who's on the channels, will actually confirm that they have verified your identity. Then we will move on to the next one. If you're not able to confirm your identity immediately, then you will have to let go of the echo dot and the next available person will receive it. Okay, so don't forget to identify yourself. I will wait for a few seconds because I know YouTube has some degree of delay in getting the message to you, right? So here we go. Let's begin. I'm going to run the next cell, right? So I'm going to the next cell and I'm going to run it. This is the first name coming up now. Okay, so the first name is Shreya Chakrabarti. Congratulations, Shreya Chakrabarti. Are you in the session? If you're in the session, please identify yourself, right? And it has to be Shreya Chakrabarti. You have to identify yourself. Okay, if your username on YouTube is different, please provide your email address on YouTube and we can kind of reconcile that, right, with what we have on file. And I'm going to open the post that Shreya made. So I'm just going to click this link. It'll open up the post that Shreya has made. We can actually see the post. Okay, until then, Shreya, if you're there, now is your time. Please identify yourself. Okay, Shreya Chakrabarti, student at PDEU. Okay, this is the post Shreya has made. You have 1,013 followers. That's very good. Are you in the session, Shreya? Okay, we will move on to the next one. Sorry, Shreya, the award is going further. Okay, we are moving on to the next one. I'm going to run this. Okay, the next one is Anil Panda. Do we have Anil Panda in the session? Please identify yourself, Anil, if you're there. This is the post Anil Panda has made, business systems analyst, QA at Vision Plus, cards and payment. 3,588 followers, Anil. That's really nice. Anil Panda, yes, Anil Panda is here. He's able to identify himself. Congratulations, Anil. You've just won the Echo Dot. You've just won an Echo Dot. Please, our team will get in touch with you over the email you've used. We have made a note of your name and our team will get in touch with you and you will receive the Echo Dot in the coming week. Congratulations at Anil Panda. You've successfully identified yourself. Okay, we have 2 more Echo Dots to go. So we're going to run this again, right? Prashant Sonavne. Prashant Sonavne is the next winner of the lucky dot, of the Echo Dot. Prashant, Are you there now? Prashant, can you identify yourself in the session? This is the post that Prashant has made. System engineer at Honeywell Automation India, 172 followers. We have an attendee from Honeywell. Prashant, are you in the session? If so, please identify yourself. Okay, let's give it a few seconds. Prashant, if you're in the session, now is the time to identify. Else we'll move on to the next one. Just going to check my Zoom chat as well. Okay, Prashant, we can't see you. You're going to have to go to the next one. So sorry, you're going to miss your echo dot. Okay, next one. Let's look at, we're going to run this again for the second winner for echo dot. The next name is Dilip Kumar S. Do we have Dilip Kumar in the session? Dilip Kumar, do we have Dilip Kumar in the session? Dilip Kumar S. Dilip Kumar, I am in. Yes. Congratulations, Dilip. We've successfully recognized you. We've been able to identify you. Congratulations. You have won the second Amazon Echo Dot. This is yours to take. You will receive it in the coming week. Congratulations, Dilip. Right? Okay. So now for the final one, third Echo Dot. Right? Let's see if the next person is there. We're going to run this again. And Prashant JT. Do we have Prashant in the session? Prashant JT, Tableau developer at Kurlon Enterprise Limited. Prashant, do we have you in the session, Prashant? No, Prashant is not there. Prashant, now is the time to identify yourself if you're there. Okay, Prashant not there. Okay, for all the other ones of you, there's still hope. We have the last echo dot to be given, still hope. We're going to run it now. Prashant, so sorry, you're going to lose your award. We're running this now for the last echo dot. Let's see whose name comes next. Venkata Tejasvi Pacherla. Is it Venkata? Venkata, are you there? Tejasvi? Are you present in the session? This is the post. There's still hope for others. We don't know yet if Venkata is in the session. Venkata, are you in the session? Tejasvi. Is that you? Okay. BlobCity team, can we identify if Tejasvi is the same person? I'm waiting for the final confirmation. Venkata Tejasvi, industrial engineer, actively looking for work. Tejasvi, can you please specify your email address so that we can reconcile it? Right, because there's a name mismatch. Can you mention your email so that we can go and re-verify that it is indeed you? Tejasvi, waiting for your email. Please post it on the chat. Yes, we have got it. Can we verify, please? BlobCity team, the email will not be visible to others. BlobCity team waiting for the final confirmation. Okay, I hope all of you are excited while we wait for the final confirmation. Okay, so we're still going to wait. My team has just notified me they're going to take 2 seconds till they reconcile the email address. We have given the email. We're going to wait on this, right? And until then, I'll just walk you through all the aspects. So if you're part of the course, just to rebrief for all of you, you have free access all the way from the keynote session to Python to all the way till NumPy, how machines learn NumPy. We'll be studying NumPy. We'll be studying pandas. We actually used pandas right now for the lucky draw. You'll be using pandas. This very program that you had for pandas, you'll be able to use it yourself, right? And we would then move on to matplotlib, which are visualization libraries. Okay, then we go to visualization libraries in matplotlib. We cover Seaborn, and you have access, free access to all of this. Please do not, pay for anything of this. After this, if you would like to continue further onto the training, you have machine learning concepts, exploratory data analysis. These modules will be locked for you right now. You can activate your trial. These modules will be locked. If you want to unlock all of these, the price for the course is $999, or in Indian rupees, 74,999. 74,999. Okay, 74,999 is the final thing. So I have my team has confirmed. Okay, so Tejasvi, we have successfully been able to identify you. Your email is correct. Congratulations, you are the winner of the third Echo Dot and the final Echo Dot we have for now. This is not the end. For all those who have not won this time for this contest, please stick along till the end of the training. We have more contests coming up next week. So please join the session next week for more free goodies that we are giving out. And for all of you who are attending with us and staying with us, you will all receive a participation certificate if you complete the course. So if you wait all the way till the end of the course, we're keeping a list of who joins the sessions. So if you wait till the end of the course, you will basically have a participation certificate that you receive, which confirms that you've actually learned Python for data science. You can feel free to share the certificate with your colleagues, your fellow attendees, all of them. So do stick around. We are all here to make sure you become a data scientist. We are really committed to making sure you become a data scientist, and we really hope you succeed in that. We would really love to hear all the feedback we can get from you and on how to improve the session. We are really, really good. We're really interested in knowing how we can get even better from where we are. So we really look forward to working with you over the next 3 weeks while we basically get you to be proficient in Python. So I have Suvir with me again, and Suvir will be resuming from where we left. So back to you, Suvir, to get started, to resume on the Python programming.
All right, sure. Thanks, Sanket, for that. And that was really, really interesting. And that was also really exciting to see people winning some kind of a prizes on this part. So that was really interesting. So I hope I have kind of unmute myself. I haven't shared the screen yet, so I hope my voice is audible and you're able to hear me out well.
Loud and clear, Suvir.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen, so let's go ahead and share this and let me know if you were able to see the screen. Okay, so I guess you guys had a good break, and also the sessions were quite interesting. Me as an instructor also kind of I was very much focused on what was happening, and yes, we are back on learning Python. So before the break, we looked at some of the aspects of basic Python programming, correct? Some technicals of Python programming. We looked at some of the very basic syntaxes for the Python, which are essentially important because these are the building blocks to eventually creating, complex machine learning models. Exploratory data analysis and doing some kind of an inferential analysis also involves a lot of programming. So these syntaxes are really, really important for you to go through. And also I will encourage that after the sessions, you have the access to the portal. You can very well take your time and you can look at that part to self-review and self-adhere to that. So that's going to really help on this part because Python or any other programming language is a little complex initially also, and moving forward also it becomes more and more complicated as you move forward. So it's always good to pull your socks from the start, be focused and attentive so that the sessions which are going to come just moving forward will be very productive and very interesting, because if we are able to understand the subject, the interest level is definitely going to be there. So we finished the Hello World program, which was the first slide. And now we are going to go ahead with the second one, which is the second part of that is called as a language semantics. So I hope everyone knows what the semantic is and what the semantic basically do. It's like it's not a physical layer. It's a very logical layer, correct? So semantics is basically about the logical layers which we have for a specific object. So the object here is Python, and we are talking about language semantics for Python. Now, this is quite a comprehensive notebook out here, and we will go kind of a step by step into this part, and we will see how we are able to, kind of understand the elements associated with this one. So the language semantic Python is different from many commonly used programming languages. And so there is a grammar difference, and as in any programming language might have the grammar difference over there. The Java has got a different syntax to write the statements. Python has got a different syntax. And that's the reason we have masters, basically experts writing the program in a programming language. So you would see seldom people writing programs across the programming languages, but that is also possible to an extent. So you can do that if your fundamentals are very clear. You can also write your code. So let's say, how do we write a simple Python syntax, a simple programming syntax in Java, and how do we write that in Python? So the first block of line, the block of code, it says that let's take an example for a for loop from Java. So everyone knows what a for loop does, correct? So for loop is used for continuous looping of a particular operation. That could be adding numbers, that could be transferring files from one location to another based on some condition. And for loops are typically for each of the elements which we have in the group. So here we have a basic syntax for the Java language, and you see that it looks like kind of a lot of text which has been written here. There's a lot of curly braces and round brackets which we have, and there's a lot of colons and system.out.println kind of. So what we see here is the code inside the for loop is placed within the round curly braces. Okay. And however, something like this will not work in Python because it's actually not the code for Python. It's actually a code for Java. So below is a loop code defined in Python. This is actually a code for Python, and you would see that there is some data list out here called as a my array. And how do you run this? So we have for x in my array, you print the x. I mean, this is the same code, the same syntax what we see here, which is in Java, and this is an equivalent code which we write in Python. You can see. So now you can see that how effective Python is when it comes to writing these short, kind of straightforward syntaxes. I mean, Python is straightforward. So in Python, a colon denotes the start of an indented code. Out here, you can see that there's a colon here. This is similar to the round curly braces that we have in other languages. The round curly braces are also available in R programming. So you generally don't put this as a colon. You do this as a round bracket. You mentioned the start of the condition as a round bracket. In R, also you use a curly braces just like Java, but that's a little different. So in Python, we have this. So let's see whether we are able to run this syntax. If I just use the shift enter, and you can see that this is actually running for us. It's giving us the output of all the elements which we have in the list. And since we are running a for loop is for each item or for each iteration which we have. I hope everyone out here understands what our iteration is.
Suvir, could you zoom in a little? We're getting a lot of requests for the zoom in.
Sure.
On the screen. Yeah, let's see if that is, yeah, maybe this will be better for everyone. Thanks.
Sure, perfect. Thank you so much. I hope this is all better. Okay, sorry, I did not see those comments. All right. So what did Python do here? Python actually took the list which we had, and how it was a list. I mean, we are yet to see all those things, how to create a list or how to create a different data structure which we have in Python. So my array is actually a list, and we are iterating that in a for loop. And that's what we see, the output, that for x in my array, which is actually for every element, you give us something. There are a couple of things to notice. One is the colon, which we already discussed, that this colon is because of the grammar of the language. And there is another print statement which we see just beneath the for loop. And if you see that this print statement is not something like this, okay, it's actually like this. So we can see that this is an indented code. So we can see that a colon denotes the start of an indentation or indented code. So when does the for loop stop? Okay, I'll come to that part in a moment. So this is what we have. If I try to get the print statement, which is not in the indented line, if I try to run this, it says that clearly, Python clearly says that it's an indentation error. Kindly make the indented block proper, because this print statement could be an orphan print statement, but since there is a colon out here, Python is automatically expecting that you might be wanting to push this print onto this side so that the indentations are particularly maintained. So for beginners, this thing is like you can very well remember these things, that indentations are very, very important in Python. In case if in the beginning, definitely you might face a little challenge about where to place the print statements. So just to give an example. So in the beginning, you might be a little worried about where to place the print statements. Maybe I can place it on the right hand side, a bit on the left hand side, but I'll give you a good way that Python helps you. So let's say if I say for I in my underscore array, okay, which we have it here, and I have a colon. And the moment I'm going to press the enter key, you will see that my cursor will automatically go just below the I part of the program. And now I can say you print I for me, okay? And so Python automatically gave you that indentation to continue from that part, which you can very well leverage and start coding in that part. So let's say, when does a for loop stop? So let's take an example of the for loop. Now, for loop, as everyone knows, it's a mechanism in a programming language, it's actually a part of control structures when you would want to have conditional flow of your statements for a repetitive task. So as I gave an example, the repetitive task would be to pick a file from multiple locations, merge it with another one, and display the data. Anything for that matter. The repetitive task could be renaming folders, transforming files, picking files from one server and placing into another server. All those things are happening for here. So let's say for X in my array, this is another for loop. That means we are specifying that we are interested in all the elements which we have in that data structure. So for X in my array, this is actually, you can say, for each item in the object. Now the object can be a list, can be an array, it can be a tuple. So for each item in the object, now each item means that every item which we have in my underscore array, you do something with those items, okay? And what is this X in this? X is just a counter or kind of an indexing object, you can say. So for X in my array, so that is for the element in my array, you do something with that element. So print A, convert the integer values which we have in my array. So I'm going to say insert cell above, and I will say you print my underscore array, and I'm saying these are the values for my arrays. I'm saying that for each item in the object, that means for 1, for 2, and 3, you do something. I'm saying since these are integer values, I would like to convert them into a string value. The reason for that, because there is a plus operator here, I cannot plus an integer with a string value, correct? So I also have to convert your existing integer value into a string object, and that's how we have done. So what do you think the output is going to be? Our 3 element is going to repeat twice. So we're going to have 6 different outputs here. So for the A, str of X is going to be 1. And then for the B1, again, the str of X is going to be 1 because it's actually for each iteration, for each element, or for each item in the object. And then we have for the 2s and for the 3s, you can see this is how we're going to get the print statements after. So we have written 2 print statements. So both for each element. So we have 3 elements, we're getting to get 6 different outputs. So this is like pretty straightforward, and we definitely have complex for statements, complex while statements, and looping statements can become very, very complex as we move on. So definitely we'll be looking at that part. So we can see that both the print statements actually run for each iteration in the loop. And this indicates that the for loop has not yet finished. So when does a for loop end? It will end when we remove the indentation or do a reverse indentation. So let's see this one. So let's consider, so in this case, we did not remove the indentation. No, it wasn't removed. So this is like still the for loop might run. Or actually in this case, the for loop stopped because all the elements were exhausted. I mean, all the elements were finished from this list. We had no more elements to actually compute. So that's the reason the loop stopped. But anyways, let's consider the example below. So for X in my array, again, I'm saying that this is for every element which I have. Print that element again, and you print that element again. And after you printing of those elements, you print the hello. So that means we will have those initial 6 records which we had seen, plus we will have an extra record which is called as an hello. So you can see that hello got printed only once. This indicates that print hello is not a part of the for loop. So we can see print hello is not indented in the print statements. If you would have made a little indentation problems here, like say you would have got this print statement here. So it would have been like 3 print statements into 3 elements. So our output size would have become 9 records in total. But the last print statement, we did not accompany that in the existing indentation. So this print of hello is not a part of this for loop. So if this print of hello is not a part of for loop, the print of hello is going to just print it once for us. So that's all. That's why we just have a single hello out here, because it just got printed a single time. Okay, so we see that the hello got printed only once, and this indicates that print hello is not a part of the for loop. And if we try to bring it into the for loop, as I said, it's going to create 9 different options for us. So as we see, print hello is not indented, and the 2 print statements closing the indentation closes the logical block started with colon. So we can choose to include comments. So let's see this one. So this one, for X in my array, there's a question, let's say for an array, how to print along with index and values. There's a question, so we need to get, there's a question that in an array for Python, how do you print along with index and the values? See, it's not just that array has names, even tuples have names, vectors have names in that part. But even if you want to put the, want to have the index and the value, moving forward, we have the I locations, index locations, and the locations methods in the NumPy. So because most of the multidimensional array analysis we're going to be using NumPy, because we don't use built-in array methods in Python. We use ND arrays, that is n-dimensional arrays, which comes in numerical Python, that is NumPy. So definitely you will get to see that example over there. I will try to run the codes. So there's another question that, so we run a risk of running a large logical error during one incorrect indentation, and how do we prevent this? Actually, Rajiv, there is no way that you can prevent this, because this is the grammar of the language. This is the way, this is the syntax on the language. You could definitely write the try-catch exceptions. You can write the exceptional program, but you cannot write exceptions for indentations. So it's not going to do an autocorrect indentations for you. So this is typically a developer's discipline that he has to maintain, he or she has to maintain, to ensure that the code is, the error-free, or any syntax error-free codes has to be there. Other than that, if you want to get any exceptional conditions that in your list, if you encounter any specific number, then you do something. Definitely you can write those try-catch exceptions over there. But when it comes to writing the grammar of the language, there is no help on that part. So same things. So for X in my array, this comment is placed inside the for loop, but that doesn't mean that this comment will run multiple times. So we have again print of A with the element or item 1, then the print of B with again the item 1. And here is another comment within the for loop. You can see there's another comment for the print statement. And this comment is outside the for loop. So what happens when I try to run this? More or less, we have the same kind of structure what we saw before. A comment can also be followed through a line. So I've been just commenting it this way. You don't have to necessarily comment it always on the top of the code. You can also comment at the side of the code. Or some people prefer to commenting at the bottom of the code. So depending on what you feel, but this is the most standard way of commenting a specific code, because since this is an interpreter language, Python executes this code line by line. So every line should have a proper comment. If you're writing a complex functions, then you should definitely write comment for each line, because the Python executes these codes line by line. So if any other developer is wanting to walk himself through the code, it become much easier task. And not just for your colleagues or for your peer who would want to have a skim through your code. Even if you would want to have access to your own code after maybe a quarter, let's say after 3 months, even if you have written the code, you might take a little while to understand the logic. So it's always important that you comment the codes so that you get a quick glance of what this particular section is doing, and then you can act based on that. So you can see there's a simple comment here. So let's look at an interesting example in the below section. And are these comments really inside the loop, or are they just lines of code that are completely ignored by the interpreter? So you can see if I run this, I simply get for x in my array, you print the x, that is you print the first one, and then you multiply your element with the value of 2. So definitely we're going to have 1 into 2 is going to be 2, 2 into 2 is going to be 4, and 3 into 2 is going to be 6. So this is perfectly written output code with no inconsistencies. So definitely I can say insert cell above, and you can say my underscore array, you can say this, and you can see the we've got this list of 3 elements. And when I'm doing print of x, it prints 1. When I say print of x into 2, it says 2, and so on and so forth. And that's how we get a 3-element into output of 6 different records. So interestingly, we can see that the comment prints did not actually break the for loop. Both print statements got included within the loop. So I hope this point is clear, guys. So whether you write a comment on the top section or the bottom or on the side of the code, your code is totally unaffected or unaffected by the comments which you're writing. It's solely based on for your convenience. You can write them anywhere as you like, but just ensure that it is in the readable format and in the readable places that you can accommodate that. So definitely the comments are not going to be interpreted by the kernel or by the Python. The comments are there only for the reference purposes. So it is important to note that it requires an actual line of code that is not indented to break an indentation. So comment won't break an indentation. So if you are planning to break your indentations, you're planning to break your loop, you basically trying to interrupt your program, it's not going to work out with simply comments. You will have to insert an actual line of code to break the loop or any kind of interruptions. For better code readability, it is highly recommended that you appropriately indent your comments, and any comments that don't follow the indentation of the block of the code can make code less readable and confusing. Okay, so just keep these things in mind. I'm sure that you'll be able to fasten along these things pretty well. Let's come on the semicolon. So some of the grammar that we have studied so far is the syntax of the Python language. So we have seen that how different it is from Java. At least what example we saw for the for loop was for a language called as Java. And what we are learning right now is Python. So we saw how Python is different. Python, I consider Python as a very, very big calculator. You can also consider Python as a very big calculator, in which you can code anything and everything. The only thing that you cannot code is in fact, the only limitation I would say in these programming language is your imagination. So if you are unable to imagine, you're unable to code. So that means the thumb rule to coding is you first need to bring the story out in your mind before you even start writing your code. Read the problem statements. After reading the problem statements, analyze the problem statements with how many variables do you think these problem statements might have as inputs? How many variables you might have in order to solve these problem statements as outputs? And what kind of calculations or what kind of a computation you will need after pushing these variables inside the system? What kind of things you will have to define? Do you have to work with existing functions, or you will have to create new functions to do this? So for example, if you want to derive, you want to pass on a Pythagoras function to your colleague, there is no inbuilt Pythagoras function in Python. So you will have to create that. So you will have to think on those lines. You will have to bring the structure totally in your mind first, and then go ahead and start to program. So let's see, Python statements do not need to be terminated with a semicolon, as you have seen in MySQL. And people who are coming from a little database technical background, you have seen in MySQL that when you actually terminate a statement, you ended up with a semicolon just to let the interpreter know that I have finished writing this line of code, and you can basically send the results across. So, but Python is not like that. So even if you specify a semicolon in Python, Python will be still unaffected with that. But that Python never encourage you or any developer to basically write those semicolons every time you write the code. Okay, so so that means we have no limitation, or we have no kind of a force that we have to use a semicolon. We are still good with. So there are certain occasions where we would still like to use a semicolon. So to terminate a statement, of course, yes. And but when do you use to terminate a statement? See, most of the statements which we write in Python are line by line. So when you write it line by line, you don't have to terminate it all the time. But when you write it in a sequence, let's say in a one single line, the way we see this particular code, you can see it is separated by semicolons. And this is where it's going to absolutely work for us. You can see this. So print of hello, semicolon, print of world is going to still give us the output. And this is where you can leverage the semicolon part over here. I'm sure the commas are not going to work for this case. You can still try with that. So let's say I'm going to say hash, and let's go, instead of a semicolon, I have a colon. And you would see that the print of hello and the print of world did not work actually. It's not going to give you a logical output because it still thinks that this syntax is incomplete. Okay, so you have to make sure, you have to understand in what places you need to add this thing. So let's say even if you want to make the best use of this thing what you've written, so what we will have to do is we will have to get rid of certain things like this print statement and some of these brackets which we have out here. As you can see, now when we write a comma, we are able to print the hello world altogether. When we are using a semicolon, let me run this again. So when we are using a semicolon, like a separator, we are still ready to, we can see this, but it is separated actually. And the comma is not giving us any specific results. Now it is giving us hello world, you can see. So we have hello and the world out here. And then the last one is actually a concatenation. So I have just kind of put that together. But that's fine. So you can use your comma when and where required. For these kind of statements, I will encourage to use the first kind of a code, because commas are typically used for concatenations and printing multiple values. So there is a possibility that you might get confused between a comma and a separator. So ensure for a different separators, use a semicolon, and for one word separator, you can use just a comma. Pooja Kamra is saying, I need to print both index and value within a single statement. But that depends what kind of a statement you like to wanting to create. Are you talking about tuples, or are you talking about lists? You're talking about arrays, what kind of thing? So you can definitely do that. There is absolutely no point in that we cannot do it. We can very well do that. We can print both the indices and the values, but you need to ensure what kind of a data structure you're talking about. It is about your tuple, or is it about your list or data frame or something like that. Okay. So you got that, right? So there's an answer, there's a question there, how to get the hello world, hello and world on the same line. I mean, this is pretty simple, right? So there's a question that how can we get the hello and the world together on the same line? And that is possible through by combining them into a single print statement. Okay, so once we combine them into a single print statement, we have them combined as an output over there. So the semicolon instructs the interpreter that you are closing the first line and starting a new line of code. So the above code with the semicolon would have given an error. That's actually perfect. So you can try with that and definitely it's going to give you an error. So we have an option saying that array. Okay, so you would like to use an array to print both indices and the value. So very well you can do that, Pooja. There is no absolute no in that. So definitely you can do that, not just with arrays, but also with your lists and tuples, data frames, etc. You can do that. But let me just come to that point, before I demonstrate that to you. Let us come to that point of actually showing you how to get the values and the indices. We'll try to cover up some part of this section, and then definitely we have those things planned in the coming session. So definitely we will touch base on those things. Because we haven't known what an array is, I haven't even shown how does a tuple looks like or how does a list look like. So let us touch those fundamentals and definitely we can look at that part. So if statements, conditional statements. Now see, this is again a very logical part in this. Is this okay? So if statements. So definitely, in computer programming, not just in programming, even in Microsoft Excel, you're using a lot of if then else statements, correct? So you've been using a lot of if then else statements. There have been people who are working on Tableau and other kind of technologies, and I'm sure that they are using these kind of if then else statements a lot. So what does this kind of a statements? It's called as conditional statements. And when these conditional statements are combined with control structures, that is for loops and while loops, they are called as conditional control structures. And why this is important? I'll give you an example for this one. I'm not sure how many people have worked on Microsoft Business Intelligence. But when you work on some of the ETL activities, like, you kind of load the data from one system to another, could be for whatever reason you would want to load that. When you run the block of that code, you first check actually whether there is a need to run this code or not. To give an example, let's say you load the data, incremental data every time onto your target database every night. So if there were 2 records updated, a day prior, only 2 records should basically go and update into the system. Not all the records should go and load every time. So let's say you would want to set this logic in your program that you first go and check the target table if the max record time or the max update time is greater than it's not possible, but if it's equal to the max of the system time, then you actually don't run this loop. But if the max time of that system is less than our system time, then you run this loop. So this is where I'm actually locking the loop over there with the help of conditional statements, with the help of conditional control structures over there. I'm going to say that if you meet specific condition, if you are unable to do that, you do something else. And that's what we're going to do. But in most of the cases, you will see that in Excel, there are a lot of people who are working on Excel, and they do write a lot of if-then else statements. Sometimes if you see their Excel workbooks, the entire workbook is filled with if-then else statements. And there is no better way in Excel to actually overcome that part. But we do have many, many better ways in Python and other programming languages to get rid of if-then else statements. And there is a specific reason to that. The reason is when you use if-then else statements, it actually goes and checks, every statement which you have or every condition which you have. And that can actually affect the performance of your system. Okay, so there are other exceptional ways that we can handle these if then else statements, which we're going to talk about very soon. But let's say this one. So I am writing this code called as an import random. So import random is we are going to just get some random integers. You can see random is actually a library in Python core. And how does it help us? It helps us by giving some random parts of this. Okay, so let's say I would like to import random. And let's see, what does this random basically gives us? What kind of a method this kind of random gives us? The random gives us a lot of different choices. So we've got this, can you see the rand int? And then we have random.random. There's other method under random called as random.random. And we may have subsequent methods into this random, which basically we can access through methods, but IntelliSense is not giving those results. But let's see. So we've got these rand int to get the random integers, random to get the random series over there. We have different randoms also. We have seed, etc. So right now, so random, we have imported this library. And I'm saying that you give me rand int, which is like, so random.rand int. Let's say random, sorry about that. Okay, rand int I have, and when I do a question mark on this and I go to the help file, you can see that it has a random.rand int a comma b, wherein it returns the random integer in a range of a and b, including both endpoints. Okay, that is what we have. So we are saying that you give me between, you give me random integers of 0:10. So let's see what kind of an option we get here. So we got a single scalar value between 0 and 10. And if I keep running this, it starts giving us different random integers. You can see that sometimes it's going to give us 1, 2, 5, 8, 9, whatever we want. Okay. Now this is what the rand int is doing. It's going to give us a single random integer between the range which I have specified. So let's go ahead and see what this is going to do, what this random is going to do, and how it's going to help us in our control structures or conditional structures here. So I'm saying that you first load this variable a with some integer value. What that value is going to be, we are not sure because we have given that as a range. Range means you pick any random value between 0 and 10. Okay. And we don't know what random value is going to pick right now. We're saying that if the value in a is less than 5, you print the random number is less than 5. Simple. If the value of a is less than 5, you print the random number is less than 5. For some reason, let's say if this print statement is not populated in the result set, that means the condition is not being met. So this will be printed. Okay, so this will be printed only when, sorry about this, only when the a is less than 5 condition is met. Okay, or met, or the condition is true, whatever. So whenever the condition is true, it's going to run this. So I'm just going to hit enter and see what's going to happen. The random number is less than 5. So that means this will be printed only when a less than 5 condition is met true. So that means our value of a is actually less than 5. And we can verify that using a print of, sorry, that print print of a, and you can see the value is actually 0. That means this one. In the help file also, we have seen that it considers both the start and the end. So you can see the value is 0. That's the reason the statement is printed, because 0 is less than 5. Let's try again. The statement is printed one more time. So let's see what is the value for A. This time it is 2. Let's run that again. And this time it didn't print the statement at all. You know why? Because the condition, this one, must have not been satisfied. And let's see this. The number, the value in the A variable could be equal to 5 or could be greater than 5. And it seems that the value in the variable A is greater than 5. So the above statement is a simple if statement, and the colon denotes the start of the if block, and the block continues until the indentation is broken. Okay, so very interesting, guys. I mean, in the start, you might have a little of your mind kind of move on the confusion track, but you will have to assemble those pieces together in order to join this and come up with a very systematic programming. So I'm sure that moving forward in these days, we are able to help you and understand this subject so that you could start writing the codes without referencing any kind of a forum or any kind of a code which someone else has designed. There's a question that our IntelliSense is not by default working in the cloud, as Jupyter is showing how to start that. So actually, Gaurang has asked this question. So Gaurang, sometimes on the web, it is a little delayed. So it might take 7 to 8 seconds sometimes to display the IntelliSense. And this just happens maybe a couple of times. After that, it totally becomes fine. So you can try to wait for 7, 8 seconds and see if that happens, and also ensure that the IntelliSense which you're trying to populate is actually valid to that object. Okay, if you're trying to do print dot something, it may not work for you. There's another question that how to see the help for the random.rand int. That is simple. You don't have to actually use the question, the function brackets out there. Okay, so you can simply use random.rand int question mark, and then there's a shift enter. And you can put the question mark anywhere. So you don't have to use this as a function. Okay. Invalid syntax. You cannot use this. You can use it this way. So interesting point is that the Python does not require the condition of the if statement to be included in the round braces. Can you see this? This if statement, it's like actually like this. And this is the typical code for Java and the R programming also. Even the R programming works just the same way. It has your statement, it has your brackets, round brackets, and then it has your curly braces. After in R, the syntax, we don't have to write all system.out. But yes, this code is a little different than what we're in Python. What we have to write in Python is, in Python, we don't write it this way. We simply write if A is less than 5 and then colon. So the moment the colon comes, it means, you know, that there's a evaluation of the condition is about to start. So there are 2 more questions on my question box. So there's a question by Ramesh, I guess. So we have used rand int for integer value. So what we can use in case of float values, you can use rnorm. I mean, just to give us quick random.rnorm, R as in a random and norm, NORM as a normal. So just rnorm distribution, you can get a single value from that, which will be a float. You can get that. Pooja has a question. Is 10 included in the rand? Yes, absolutely. So if you seek the help of that rand int, which we did some time back, you can see in the documentation it says random int. You give the specify the start and the end, and you can see A and B, including both the endpoints. So if you have both the endpoints, and we also saw that 0 was also one of our things, right? So we have random dot. So random dot float. So there's a question. A random dot float can be used for float and similarly with different cases. Just to answer this one, no, actually not. We can see there is no method for the float. You can see random dot rand int. Let's say random dot rand float we have. No, we don't have. Let's say random dot random. Let's seek the help file for this one. X in the interval, built-in function or method. So you can say random dot random. You can call it as 0.0, sorry, 0.0, comma 0.9, let's say something like that. So do we have any random? No. So it says we have, it takes random, takes no argument. So let's see if we simply use this one. You can see there is a float which is actually come up. So if you want to further define some kind of thing, so you see, you can also define further in the print. There is, we can define the format for this one, the decimals, etc. So we can say that 0.471 is basically our random value. If I keep changing this, you can see the random value keeps changing. And that's what the random is all about. So you can definitely use the random from random dot random. You don't have to particularly choose our norm. Yes, absolutely. So there's a question that is this the same random code used for picking up the Alexa echo dot? Yeah, perhaps. I'm not very sure what kind of. Yeah, perhaps that is quite possible. I did not actually see the kind of a code there. So, but yes, this may be true. Yes. And which is in fact the true, because if someone wants to do a random draw, the only way to do a sample, okay, and the sample means you draw randomly from a population. So you, if you want to draw a sample, the only way in Python or these languages is to use a random method. So definitely yes, if you are curious, just to let you know and suppress your curiosity, yes, definitely these methods are being used for the random contest, and that's my guess. So okay, so we have a is equal to random dot rand int and then 0 comma 10. Okay, so 0 comma 10. So definitely we are again trying to pick up random integers. But rand int is going to give us only scalar. So like, okay, so a has again got a single value over there. So we have, if a is less than 5, there is a condition. So this is a condition out here. There is some condition. This is some condition out here, and those conditions could be anything. You print something. You print random number is less than 5. If that is true, else you print this. So just to give another heads up on this is, like, whenever this condition comes out to be true, then only it will jump to the inside of the code. So condition is true, then switch the line, switch to the next line of code. Okay. If condition is false, then you directly switch to the else part. Then directly to else part. Okay, so if condition is false, then directly you jump to directly jump to else part because this condition did not meet. And if this condition is not meeting, I cannot print this statement. The random number is less than 5. I cannot print this because I haven't evaluated that part, etc. There's another question, why the value of the random number is taken as 0 and why not 1 to 4? You can do that. You can very well do that. If you look at the help option, we saw that there is a start and a stop. You can specify any number. It's not about specifying 0 and 10. You can also specify 100 and 200, and it's going to draw a sample value for you between those ranges. Okay, so far, I guess, guys, this class, I hope it's moving all in the sync with what you are looking at. There's another question. In this if-else code, we don't need to mention a greater than 5 mandatorily prior indentation, right? No, that is basically the condition. There's a question. So there's a question that in this if-else code, we don't need to mention a greater than less than 5. You have written actually a greater than 5, mandatorily prior indentation. I didn't really get that question, Joel, but the point is you have to specify the condition. And after specifying the condition, you will start writing the body of the block, which should very well be indented. Yeah. Okay. So far, we just saw one single condition, and then we went to the else statement for that. Obviously, like say, if you don't eat the dinner tonight, you are likely to get hunger pangs in the morning, let's say. Okay. Else, you eat your dinner tonight and don't get the hunger pangs in the morning. Simple. So if let's say in your refrigerator, if your shelf number 1 is kind of occupied, then go to the shelf number 2. If shelf number 2 is occupied, try with shelf number 3. If shelf number 3 is also occupied, print there are no more available shelves to place your product. Whatever. You can, in fact, write your entire Python programming by just using your own refrigerator. You can try to put in values inside your object, and you try to take out items outside your object. So which is more or less you can relate it to a refrigerator, wherein you put a lot of items in a day inside the refrigerator, you make changes in those items, you take out those items, and you can practically relate Python with that. In fact, most of the electronic appliances, they have these logics embeds, especially in your other laundry appliances, which we have. Refrigerator is fine. That's a different electronic appliance. But yes, it does work on conditions because there is a cutoff limit. So if you have your temperature set to a low degree, there is still a cutoff point. So there is some sensors which basically work to help you going. So let's look at another example, but this time we have multiple if statements in this rather than having a single one. So this one, again, we went with int 0 to 10, and just to address that, this is a choice. So you can just do 0, 100 also, no problem. So I'm saying a is random integer. If a is less than 5, you print the random number is less than 5. In other languages, I have seen, in fact, you have also seen in Excel also, there is a statement called as else if. That you have to actually write the complete else and then if over there. But in Python, if you try to write else space if, it's going to give you an error because Python is giving you another convenience to short that to just elif and not else if over there. So we're not going to use else if because it's not going to work for us. So if a is less than 5, you print something. If a is logically equal to 5, this is actually logically equal to 5. So what does this mean? That check the value for A if it is equal to 5. And why do we use a double is equal to? Double is equal to is actually an operator to check the logical equivalent to that. Because if I try to use A is equal to 5 in Python, A is equal to 5 means that you assign 5 as a value into variable A, but which is going to be a wrong thing because we have already assigned a value to A using a rand int function. So we can't do that here. And within the LF, absolutely, that's actually, you cannot do that. So LF A is logically equal to 5, check logically equal to 5, true or not. Here also, the output is going to be true or false. Here also, this is going to be true or false, okay? And if none of these conditions work, that means if A is not less than 5, if A is not logically equal to 5, you print the random number is greater than 5. So I'm going to run this part. Absolutely. So that's perfect. We got the last print statement on the screen, which is like the random number is greater than 5. So this says that our previous two conditions did not work at all. A is less than 5 and A is logically equal to 5 did not work. So let's verify that. I'm going to go to cell, insert cell below, and I'm going to say print A. The value is 96, which is actually not less than 5. And it is not equal to 5 also. And why this time we got 96? Because someone asked on the code that why are we specifying 0 to 10? So this time I've specified 0 to 100. So any integer value within this range is likely to be captured as a sample. So very well, we did two things. We in fact did three things. We got the sample number using a random int library method basically in Python. When we got that number as a scalar, we used the conditional statements like if then else conditions to check the value in them. And if the value is meeting a specific condition or if it's not meeting, then you do certain steps in order to move forward. That's what we have done. So if statements we studied, elif we studied with an kind of a secondary if statement in that, and then we have the else. There is quite possibility that you may have, other than LF, you may have a different way of writing these things. So let's move forward. So we don't have to typically, might not have to use the LF statements. We might simply live with if statements, but with a dual condition in that, the way it's given here. So you can see Python uses the convention of LF instead of else. Some other language you're most likely familiar with uses the else if, that's what I said. So as you might have guessed, if statements can have multiple conditions. Let's quickly look at these examples. So instead of me specifying a different elif conditions, if statement can have multiple conditions, but what if I have to write multiple condition in a single statement? So we have if a less than 10 and a, what is this divisor? Let's say insert cell above. This is all your operators. A is 96 by 2. You can see it's a 0. So that means this particular A, which says returns the division remainder, if any. So if you have any remainders in your divisions, that is what it's going to return for us. Correct? So can we try this? Instead of 96 divided by 2, let's say 96 divided by 3. So, okay, so even 96 is able to divide by 3. That's, we have no, what do you say, remainder. Let's say with 5, there is a remainder of 1 over there. Okay, so here also we are doing more or less the same things. If A is less than 10, I think the A value is 96. It's 96. So if A is less than 10 and the remainder division for A is logically equal to 0. So this condition, since we know our answer, this condition is not going to fulfill. It's going to be a false condition here because A is not actually less than 10. It is greater than 10. Else, print this is an odd number or a number greater than or equal to 10. So definitely this statement is likely to be printed because 96 is greater than 10. Can you see this? Now, the difference between this block of code compared to the previous one is that we have used an AND condition here. And in the previous one, we had used elif. We can definitely use elif also in that. But there are these are two different ways of writing it, right? So if you want to evaluate A in a single condition, you won't be able to use the elif feature. So interestingly, Python is not using the commonly used and convention. It uses simply the and keyword, you can see, and define the and clause within the if statements. So similarly, or is also used in place. So what is the difference between and or? So and or is that here if you and, we'll actually try for both the conditions. This is the verb for and here or will try to satisfy a single condition. Or basically, the or clause is happy even if one of the condition is fulfilled out of that. So if A is less than 10 or A is the divisor A is logically equal to 0. So I think the first condition is not true, but the second one is. So if the second one is evaluated to be true, then this one needs to be printed. This is a number that is even or less than 10. You can see the first condition is printed because there is an or condition. So less than 10 did not satisfy, but this condition did satisfy. There's a couple of more things to know in this case, like since A less than 10 did not satisfy, that's the reason the if statement went to the divisor A part. If A is less than 10 would have been satisfied, it would not have bothered for the second condition, absolutely. That's the or clause, basically. It has to have some of the other response from the variables, and from whichever variable you get the or condition gets the response, it just considers that and finishes it. Now this is the most practical way of looking at the nested if-else statements, because in most of the practicals you don't use single liners if just unless you want to print something or like that. But if you look at the production level codes which we productionize on the systems, in most of the places we have used nested if statements. In fact, in a lot of way, in a very complex way. So let's say again we have random.randint with a range of 0 to 200. You're saying if A is greater than 50, then you print greater than 50. If A is greater than 100, you print greater than 100. Else not greater than 100. Else less than or equal to 50. So definitely false. The moment this condition turns out to be false, this statement will be run. Correct? There is no other statement that will run if the first condition comes out to be false. What if the other way? If the first condition, that is A greater than 50, comes out to be true, then it's going to print this for us greater than 50. Yes, it will definitely print it for us. Plus, it will also go to the next line. Okay. If this is true, it will print this. But if it comes out to be false, it will go to the next line and print not greater than 100. So let's run this and see what's going to be the output. This value is less than or equal to 50. That's what we have got. So insert cell below, and we're going to run the A part. You can see the A value has received is 38, which is actually less than 50. Since this has turned out to be false, simply we got this condition to be printed. Let's run this one more time and see what is the value for A. It says greater than 50, so definitely this came out to be true. So once this comes out to be true, it's going to print this. That's why it is meant to be. And also, since it has come to the second level, it will also go to the third level because it is a nested loop. It has to go and evaluate the condition. If A is greater than 100, definitely it printed also greater than 100. So definitely it is greater than 100. So A is greater than 50, A is greater than 100. Now let's see what is the value of A. It has to be anything above 100. So it is 128. Simple stuff. Only thing what you require is focus to understand this part. And what you require is a good amount of practice to do this. And of course, what matters is your mentors with whom you are actually working all these things. So we can see, just like any other language, we can nest the if statements within each other. And this is true for nesting any code with the if statements. You can do as many levels of nesting as you desire. There are no restrictions. Okay. However, in Python, a common practice to split programs into small logical functions. So too much nesting can make the code hard to read. While nesting is permitted, it is recommended to keep nesting as little as possible, as I said before, because if you try to create a complex nested statement, firstly, it takes a lot of memory for your nested statements to run, because when you actually wrote the program, you also had to think a lot in order to write those complex statements. Now just imagine how much complexity a computer might face while doing this. So just keep it to the limit. Don't try to. I have seen people who try to exploit that, and there is only one reason for them to exploit it. I've seen many people who exploit the if then else code. I see only one reason for them to exploit it, and the only reason is because they have very little known about what is beyond if then else statements. So they have studied if then else, and they are not very sure that do we have any alternatives to if then else statements. The day or moment they come to know, yes, there are alternatives to if then else statement, if they kind of expand their knowledge sense onto that level, definitely they can make their exploitation a bit lesser compared to what they do now. So the past statement, if you want to write, so this is another thing. Okay, so I hope up till here, that is if then else, if elif else, all statements are clear. We can also combine these statements in a conditional structures. That's what we're going to do right now. So far we have studied conditional structures like for loops, and just for loops we have seen. And second is the control structures like if then else. Now the third part we're going to look at is how do we combine both these conditional statements and control structures to create one block of code which can, which we can execute based on what we need. So you can see when we combine these control and conditional structures, we require help of additional keywords, which will prevent our codes from being to get into infinite looping structures. We can define a limit to our loops. It may happen that initially when you ran the loop, you had few records in that, but later on the records got increased to maybe 1 million or maybe to 1 billion, and I mean you are not aware of that, and then your loop is actually running 1 million times. So just imagine what kind of resources it will take. So you don't have to get into that kind of a soup. So it's always good to use some given methods and best practices onto that. So this is one of the best practices what we see in the notes. And I will encourage people to highly go through these notes, because these notes are the best practices, what you can follow and how we can do it. So if you want to write an empty if statement, how would we do this? But if you want to do this, why would you do this? There are occasions in which you would want to certainly escape if conditions, which means if the condition is satisfied, you simply ignore the specific condition and move on to possibly another block of code. It may happen that if your condition is satisfied for whatever logical condition you have written, if it gets satisfied, you still want the code to move on without doing anything when it encounters a specific character or encounters a specific file. So let's say you have a folder and you have CSV files dumped in that folder from past, let's say, 1 month. So you have around 4 weeks of data, 4 weeks of CSV files in a specific location. You would want to say that if the files are for the last month, then you pick them, but you also want to give a condition that if the file name starts with something, you don't pick that file or you simply pass it. See, you are interested in that sample which you would want to pick up, but you still have further conditions in that sample that I would want to pick only certain items and not all items. So in those cases, you can use a keyword called as the pass statement. And simple things, right? So let's say if you're passing a letter in Google, so you're saying for letter in Google, this is a condition. So that means this is a condition to pick each element. So the element is GOOG, kind of a character element. I should be writing this as character element. I'm saying, so that means, and what does a for loop do? A condition to pick each character element. That means that is for each, sorry, what is, that is for each item, okay? Item in Google. Okay, that's what we have. So this is a condition to pick each character element that is for each item in the word Google. We are saying for letter in Google, if letter is logically equal to G, you pass, else you print the letter. Isn't it? It's so simple. So what will happen in this case? You should be getting only 4 characters, that is OOLE, I guess. So you get only 4 characters, that is OOLE, because whenever the if statement encountered a character G in a word called as Google, it simply passed statement, passed that value, nothing to do with that. It's like all clear. We have other keywords like break and continue, which we're going to look at just moving forward. So areas where you would need to syntactically have a statement, but you don't want to do anything, you would use, this is one reason that you would want to have a syntactical statement over there, but you don't want to use or do anything with that statement. This is one of the reasons you can put that as a skeleton code over there. But most of the time that if you are picking, as I gave you an example about you're picking around 100 files from a specific location, and you would say if the file system time is greater than specific date or time, then only you pick it up. Otherwise, you drop the other ones, simply pass the other ones which are not meeting the condition. So let's come on to the loops, and we have seen a single loop so far that is called as a for loop, but there are other kind of loops also available, which we should be seeing as they are really, really important. There's a question by Prasoon saying that can input be given from Excel and output be printed on an Excel sheet? Yeah, very well, you can do that. presume. So that shouldn't be a problem. You can waiver give an input from an Excel and you can get the output printed on an Excel sheet. So you will read the Excel file and you will write that Excel file. So you will read the Excel file, you will do all the operations you want to do on the data. Once your data comes in the specific format you need, you can simply say, write the CSV file or an Excel file into the system, and Python is going to do that very well for you. So all the file-based operations, even the examples which I'm giving, actually it's a file-based operation. So Python has been doing all this from, I think, more than 2 decades over there. Python is pretty skilled in doing this. In fact, almost close to 3 decades now. Abhijit has a question. Can you show after insert row below how you're getting output of random number? I'm simply inserting a new row, Abhijit. Have we defined letter anywhere? Who will know what is letter? That is correct. So this is what I had said. So I will answer both of your questions, Abhijit. First thing is, how are we getting, can you show how to insert a row below getting the output? That's a simple thing which I already spoke about. So let's say you can use this scissor also to cut a particular block of code. Let's say I want to insert a row after this block. I'll simply highlight this. You can see a green border is appearing. Simply say insert cell below and just print what you want the output for. You want A, you can also write print of A, but that's fine. I'm writing A for now. And we get the output. That's simple. This is to answer your first question. Your second question is, have we defined letter anywhere? How do we get this? Absolutely. That's a good question, Abhijit, at least for beginners. Insert cell above. Let's say I have a simple vector with me, and my vector is called as, I cannot use vectors because vectors are not iterables, I guess. So let's go with my list. My list has got, let's say, 3, 4. I've got 3 elements in my list. I can use for imaginary identification. So I can use letter in this also, for letter in my list. Print letter. I hope the confusion is clear, Abhijit. We are using these letters or I or G or H or K or LMNOP. Everything is imaginaries just to get the indentation. So for G in my list, you can write it this way, no problem. Print G. So no problem. You can use any of your characters if you would like to. So I hope that clears the confusion. So areas where you would like to use the pass statement, we don't want to do anything. You would use the pass. The pass statement is not specific to if, but is commonly used with several control structures. Obviously, because loops and functions would definitely require, because functions would also require pass statement, because function has got, it's a collection of methods. And when you want to execute those methods, definitely, these keywords like pass, break, continue keywords will be applicable. So other than pass, there are 2 more statements to look at it. Okay, other than pass, there are 2 more statements that we can look at it. And one is break statement, and the second one is a continue statement. See, I mean, this is all logical, right? So nothing is outside define the layer over there. So Python is also designed in a shell, and the shell has its own boundaries and limitations, and nothing can beat the logical reasoning to anything, be it even a programming language for that matter, right? So we have loops. So you have applied a pass statement. So definitely there's going to be another question from a user side that you actually allowed G to be passed. But what if I want to stop the loop as at the moment I encounter a G character in my expression I'm trying to evaluate? That time you can use a break. So just like pass, you have an antonym, you have a break statement to stop the code and not to pass the code. There's also a continue statement, which more or less does the continuation of the work, which we will see that in the programs moving forward. So let's see. So like other languages, Python do supports while and for loops. All loops can be nested within the other loops. Now, there is a while loop here, okay? Now, as I said before, that this is a lot of, I would say, insert, cell above, and loops in Python. So for loop, for loop actually correct. This is clear and this is well understood. For loop runs for each item or element. That means if we have 10 records in the list, it will run for all those 10 records separately. There is another loop called as a while loop. Based on a condition. So what would be the condition? Till the time the electricity is on, let the elevator move, which is actually true. The moment the electricity is gone, the elevator is likely to stop. That's a while loop. So while the electricity is on, keep the elevator on. That's basically the while loop. Or could be, while the sun is shining, you make the hay. Okay. Or any other condition, while until you can use different whiles, like say while the a is less than 5. So till the time the a is less than 5, you keep doing something. Now, I would like to raise a caution here, because for loops actually run in a continuous looping way, right? So there's a reason we have those pass and break statements to control those control structures. For loops are still not so risky the way we have while loops, because for loop sometime or the other it will end if the elements are exhausted. So definitely the for loop is likely to stop. But this is not the case with while loop. So if you say that while a is less than b, you print something. And till the time the a is less than b, it will keep printing for you infinite times, all up till it'll keep printing even after the world is not existing. That's what the while loop does. So please ensure that you use that with caution and do not use it, especially with random numbers. So while generate the random numbers, it's going to eat up all your memory. It's going to, you will have to actually go to the kernel and restart the kernel, and you might lose some of your work, whatever. So try to avoid those things. So let's say count is equal to 0. I have a counter variable which has a value of 0. And I'm saying that while the counter has some value, you keep doing something. This could be just like while the electricity is on, you keep the elevator on. Okay. So while the count is less than 10, you print count is count. And since while is also like a for loop, so it runs for each line of code which we have here. You can see that it will run for this also, it will run for this also, and then later on it will exit to some point. But let's understand this code. I am saying that you keep printing the count is count, so that means it's again an iterable. So count is less than 10. The moment it comes here, the condition is true. Correct? Everyone believes that the condition is true because count is less than 10, which is count is 0. So definitely the condition is true. And I'm saying you print count is and the variable. So every time this variable gets captured in the while loop, it is printed at least once. And once that happens, the item value is printed. Okay. At least once. And the second line of code is, once you print this item, you increment the value of this item by 1. Now, this is the way you can also write, for some people, who would want to be more comfortable, let's say for beginners, you can also write it this way. So this code and the one which is this one, count plus is equal to 1, is more or less the same. So both of things are going to give the same result. So I'm going to say once you print this item, you also increment the counter variable by 1. So what happens in this case? So till the time the counter is running, you know, keep running for every item, it is actually incrementing the count every time. And there is a scenario, it is a scenario where this count actually becomes equal to 10. And when that happens, when this counter variable becomes equal to 10, that's where the while loop stops. And let's see that. And that we're going to come to know with the help of print statement, which is already there in second line. Okay, so I'm going to run this. You can see count is 0. It starts with 0. And then the counter got incremented. When it got incremented, it was still less than 10. So it kept running. So when it reached 2, it was still less than 10. So it still kept running. And 3 and the 4 and the 5 and then 9, the moment it reached 9, it did print the 9 for you. And then later on, the moment it came to the plus 9 and the 10, it broke the loop because the condition didn't meet. 10 is actually equal to 10. So 9 is less than 10. So it actually broke there. But this could be fatal for your computer resources, because if you somehow, if you forget to mention this condition, and if you run this, it will run infinite times for you. There is a question by Meenal, which I actually did not get that. So she says, cannot we put condition in for loop? For loop, we are already putting condition, Meenal, and even for while we are putting conditions. There is a question by Nitish. Can we define the type of variable directly without giving any input? Yes, you can. So you can definitely define, but as I said, in Python, the variables are type independent, so it would not really matter even if you define that as a specific type in that. So anyone can change it later on. There are some questions. Can you explain the pass part again? If there is no max limit, then the infinite loops can happen. Absolutely. So if there are no max limit, it will actually go in the infinite loop, which I can demonstrate to you. So I will just save this. The only thing is I will have to kill the kernel and get it again. So let's say I have suppressed this condition, right? So don't increment my counter and like keep running this one. And you will see that the star will always be in the star position because the counter is not being affected. The value of the counter is not being affected. I mean, it would not matter if you go on to this part and try to do counter is equal to something. No, that will not work. It has to be in the same block. Okay, so the only way to stop this is to go to the kernel and say interrupt. Okay, which may or may not work sometimes. You have to go and just say kind of restart. Okay, I'm going to restart this and say restart. So in fact, there is a restart and clear output, but I did not do that. So restart and clear output is going to clear the output. You could see that the star sign is gone from here. And it is an empty block, an empty space. So you can rerun that. But for now, I'll go to the cell, current output, and I'll say clear this output. So just ensure that this doesn't happen at your end and your logics are absolutely in place. Just to come to the pass part. So as I said that the moment you encounter that letter, let's say G, so that's what we did. So the moment you encounter letter is equal to G, logically equal to G, you pass that. So don't actually print those characters out there. I hope that answers the question. So let's move a bit forward and see, can we use a nested while statement? So we can also nest a while loop within another while loop. So again, there's a counter called as counter 1 is equal to 0. Yes, you can do that. So Meenal has a question. I want to ask, like, if I wish to run a loop for I is equal to 1 to 3. That is absolutely correct, Meenal. You can do that with the help of a range. So range functions are definitely going to be covered moving forward, but I'll just give you a small gist of this. So we can say for I in, okay, range of 0 colon the length of, let's say, my number, whatever, my number, my list, what could be, whatever the item we have in there, you can do this. So if you have a my list, which has got an item of, let's say, 3, so you can say, give me a range of 0 to all over the 3, and you can iterate that as many times you want. Okay, so, but this is going to come moving forward, so I'm definitely not writing this completely, though I can write it and print the statement for you. There's another question, how to stop the loop as it goes infinitely. As I suggested, you have to, you know, give your stopping or breakage of your loops based on the condition. So you have to ensure that your conditions are very well defined. Let's go with the while inside. Sorry, where did the while within the while go? Okay, it's here. So let's say count 1 is equal to 0, which is a variable. While the count 1 is less than 5, you create count 2 and initialize a value of 0. Yeah, it would not really matter if there's a max limit, infinite loops can happen. There's a question, if there is no max limit set, then infinite loops can happen. Absolutely, as I said before, you have to be very cautious about that. Can we check an while loop with a variable instead of an integer with example? I mean, this is the perfect example for the while loops. Any specific variable example? I didn't get that. Can we check a while loop with a variable instead of an integer with example? I mean, I didn't get that part because a variable can be an integer also. So this is, we are talking about scalars. So definitely we can say if the count of something, the length of count, if you want to change that, you can use this one. If the length of my count 1, if you want to do that way, you can do it with a variable. If the length of count 1 is less than 5, which is going to be true because the length of count 1 is just 1, you can do that way. Okay, so I'm saying that if the count 1 is less than 5, then you create a new variable called as count 2 is equal to 0. And then you check for the condition. If the count 2 is less than 2, which is true, you print count 1, and then the value for count 1, which is 0, and count 2 and the value for count 2. And then you increment this. First, you increment counter 2, and then you increment counter 1, so that at least loop stops somewhere. Because this 0 will be incremented with 1, 2, 3, and 4. The moment we get the 4, the loop ends. You can have a look at the code and the output and let me know if any questions. So we've got 2 counters, okay, and there is 5 iterations. So we should be getting approximately around 10 outputs. And if you see the record sizes, 4 and 4 is 8 and 2. We have 10 outputs as a result. Because our condition is counter is less than 5, and then we have 2 variables. I hope this is clear. We'll quickly move forward and try to work on with other example. Let's say if you want to use else with a while. So unlike many languages, while loop inside the Python can also have an else clause, not necessarily that else clause will come only in the if statements. So the else is a code block that is executed when the condition of the while loop is no longer satisfied, which is absolutely true because we've been learning the same way that if the condition comes out to be false, if this comes out to be false, very well, the only thing what remains is the else statement out there. So very simple code. There is a variable called as number with a value of 0. Then while the number is less than 5, which is true, you print this and also increment the number by 1. So that means it is printed only 4 times. If none of the condition is met, you print the number is no longer less than 5. So definitely when this number reaches a value of 5, this code will be printed. So in fact, both the print statements will appear sometime or the other in the code. So this will be printed 5 times. Number is still less than 5, still less than 5. And eventually in the last, when the number is not less than 5, it is equal to 5. That's where we are printing number is no longer less than 5. So this else statement is coming into picture only when this number variable is actually coming up all up till 4. Preeti has a question here. Else is in the loop. No, it's not. It's not actually. That's the reason the number is no longer less than 5 is printed only once. So there's a question by Preeti saying that is this else statement inside the loop? If it would have been inside the loop, then this statement would have also been printed 5 times because we have 5 iterations happening here. Okay, and in order for this to happen, what you'll have to do is you have to code this and you have to print it this. You have to get this print inside this indentation so that it becomes a part of the loop. But that doesn't seem to be the case. If I do that, it's going to run that for us no matter what. And I'm going to bring the else here and I'm going to print here. And this is what the indentation is correct. Guys, it might take a little while for you to get used to writing these statements and syntaxes, but I'm sure you'll be able to do that. But ensure that you listen. If you have access to these recordings, please go through this again. So guys, we have some more notes to cover up, but definitely we will cover up tomorrow. I will try to make it more interesting for tomorrow. We will try to learn this with the same enthusiasm what we showed today. And what I expect from you is only your motivation. Rest all you can leave up to us. So just please stay tuned. And that's all from my side for today. And we will continue tomorrow on these lessons.
Thank you so much, Suvir. Thank you everyone for being with us and attending the session. Before you all go, we have 2 minutes remaining. If you don't mind, we want to just collect some quick feedback. And if you have any unanswered questions, we will cover them tomorrow when we continue. Tomorrow's session will be at 11 a.m. To start India time, just like today. And we have 2 full sessions. So the first question I have for you for feedback is, how would you rate this session? How would you rate today's session? And rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 being not good and 5 being really, really good. Like you can just type it on the chat and we'll collect the response. So we'd appreciate you can give us a feedback on how did you like the session. So a 1 being really bad or not good and 5 being really good, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 5? Okay, we're getting some 5s. Oh, very nice. 3.5. Preeti, thank you. 5, 5. Oh, very nice. Okay. We can see a lot of 5s, 4s as well. 3, 4, 3, 3, 4. Okay. 4.5. Brilliant. Okay. Seems like we're doing good. Seems like this is benefiting all of you. We're really glad to know it's benefiting all of you. Our intention is to make sure you kind of get to learn Python. Now, since you all are saying you like the session so well, you're enjoying them, it's time to ask you a few things about, can you name 3 topics that you learned today, right? Just 3 topics, like any 3 things that you learned today. What would you mention? What would those be? Like, let's see what you recall. So you all like the session. Good news. Now it's time to test. So let's see what are the 3 topics you remember. Okay, loop conditions, while loops, exercise is good, random module, print and printing. Okay, data types, data list, loops. Need more examples now. Perfect. We're noting it down. Okay. Perfect. Everyone is loop, data type, indentation, data science, AI, ML, hierarchy, Harsh. Fantastic. Good. That's from the first session. You remember it. Superb. Random int, else if, elif, loop strings. Perfect. Very nice. Very nice. We can see that you all are learning a lot. I have one last question, one last feedback question for all of you. So what do you think we did? What do you think we did good? Like, what did you like? And what do you think we can do better? So it's more of an open question. So any suggestion on what you thought we did really, really well, you can mention that. And where you think we can actually do a little better than what we were doing, please go ahead and mention that. We would really like to see how we can improve on our sessions. Please also do write what is the better one and what is the worst one. So Rahul Nair says can be interactive. Perfect. Random winner selection, I assume you liked it. Good teaching, bad software. Yes, Nishika. Yes, totally agree with you. We are improving. Basics good. Giving more time on practical to be improved. Flow of topics in exercise. Okay, beautiful session. Slow in from scratch. Randomly pulling out people with raised hands. Okay. Speed is great for a beginner like me. Perfect. Where can we see the exercise offline in the BlobCity Cloud? So Sripati, you will get the recordings. It takes us a while to put the recordings there. So on the BlobCity Cloud in the Learn section, you will have the recordings. Under the recordings, you will also have access to access to this video, access to the Cloudbooks. We're also getting code to be amended in Joel, code to be amended in front of us since visuals get into the head quickly. Yes, I assume you like that, Joel. We would like to get more exercises, Ananya. Yes, absolutely. Okay, loops, Python, perfect. Okay, thank you so much. This is really, really helping us. So we are committed to making it better day by day. And it's my personal promise to all of you. We're only going to get better every single day. More often we do this. This is the first time we're doing it as a complete broadcast where a lot of you have access to the first few modules in the course. So thank you so much. We really appreciate the session. The link for tomorrow is session 3 of 14, which will be in the channel. So just on the BlobCity channel, you will see the playlist called Learn Python for Data Science, and it will be session number 3. You will also receive an email tomorrow morning with the link to join details. So you can come in at that time. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Stay home, stay safe. Please be careful. It's a mess out there at the moment, so please be careful. And we will see you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.